Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. Now, before we get into it, I'd just like to inform you about a new website selling quality current and retro Spurs jerseys, okjersey.com. They sell all current and retro Tottenham Hotspur shirts in all sizes. They sell the current fan and player versions, as well as the 80s and 90s retro shirts, including my very favourite, the 1991 FA Cup final shirt. You can order very easily from okjersey.com, and if you use the code Chris, you will receive an 8% discount off your final order. You can also use the QR code on the top left of your screen. And by the way, they also have some training wear here and the 25-26 colour special edition jersey. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Tottenham Transfer News Show. Happy New Year, by the way. Now, we will be covering all of the latest Spurs news, rumours and reports. Today, of course, is the 1st of January and the transfer window is now officially open. Now, my name is Chris Cowlin. Today, I'll be joined by Craig Dearman. We will be going through every single report covering all of the transfer news, gossip, etc. throughout the whole of the January transfer window. Yes, we will be here live every single day on YouTube and on X and on Facebook. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, press the like, comment below and turn on that notification bell where you will be notified every single time we upload a video. And there will be a lot of episodes throughout the next 30 days or so. Now let's get straight into it. Craig, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, not too bad at all.
Good stuff. Right, I'm going to start with the first story. Team Talk are stating that Conor Gallagher, his loan move potential could depend on how much Atletico Madrid are willing to continue to pay towards his wages, with Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur among the clubs linked to the former Chelsea midfielder and captain. Gallagher is allowed to leave the Spanish club in this window if he can find an agreement that suits all parties. He's wanted to fight for a place in the Atletico Madrid team and be a success, but he is now open-minded with the transfer window open. Sources have indicated, though, that the player's high wages means that a loan switch is not a straightforward one. It is thought that any club willing to and looking to sign him will want a loan with an option to buy in the summer. Gallagher currently earns up to £200,000 a week. I've got to admit, Craig, my thoughts on this, and I said exactly the same thing when we were linked with him a couple of times during Ange Postecoglou's time at Tottenham. I couldn't see it happening with the Chelsea connections. Former Chelsea captain, he and from what I'm led to believe, his family are Chelsea through and through. Would he come back to the Premier League? Yes, I think he would. Would he go to Tottenham? I can't see it happening. Would I welcome a player like Conor Gallagher in this team, and would he be an improvement on what we've got? Yes, I believe he would, but I can't see this one happening. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him go to another Premier League club. What are your thoughts?
I tend to agree with that, the Chelsea connection, although, you know, it's his job. So, in the words of Roy Keane, you know, it's football's his job. So if he does want to come back to the Premier League, there's not many takers. Would he consider Tottenham? Possibly. Do we need a player like Conor Gallagher? Yes. I think the wages are going to be a stumbling block. Like you say, £200,000 a week. I can't see Spurs paying that for Conor Gallagher. So some form of arrangement would have to be made there. But I'm a bit ambivalent about Conor Gallagher, to be honest with you. I'll take him or leave him, to be honest with you. But he wouldn't get me excited. Do you know what I mean? But I could see how he could fit into our midfield. Definitely.
I don't think he's an exciting player, though, Craig. He's more of a solid player.
Yeah. And is he better than what we've got, I suppose, is the question. That's the ultimate thing, isn't it? Is he going to replace Archie Gray? Is he going to stop his progression in the team, or Bergvall even? So I just think you need to bring in somebody in that centre of the park who's really going to make a difference. Is Conor Gallagher going to make a difference? Possibly not. But, you know, everybody's got different opinions about him. He's one of those players that splits opinion, isn't he? Another player that from Manchester City that Spurs have kind of been linked with this morning, coming from Fabrizio Romano and a couple of other sources, is Oscar Bobb from Manchester City. Now, obviously, he's a Norwegian footballer. He hasn't played that many games in the Premier League, even though Pep Guardiola rates him. He's actually only got 1 goal and 2 assists across his time at Manchester City in the Premier League. And he's thought to be linked with Spurs as a possible replacement for Brennan Johnson, should he go to Palace or wherever. It certainly looks like Palace. But thoughts on this from me. Although he hasn't had many chances in the Premier League, are we going to get the same goal output from Oscar Bob as the likes of Brendan Johnson? Possibly not. Apparently, he is more of a winger, but I'm not sure. If you've given me a choice between the 3 at City, we've been linked with Marmoush and Savinho and Bob. Bob is a really good talent, but I don't think he's quite what we need at the moment. So that's kind of where I am with that one. What do you reckon, Chris?
Yeah, very quickly on this one. We mentioned Savinho and Marmoush yesterday, and I can't see that Pep Guardiola will want to change his squad at all. I can't see any players really leaving Manchester City. And when you look at his stats as well, I've no doubt that he's a great young prospect, one for the future. But when you look at his stats, 23-24 campaign, 14 Premier League appearances, 1 goal. Last season, only 3 Premier League appearances. He's had 9 Premier League appearances so far this campaign. Is he going to come in and make a real difference and be that impact player for us? Probably not. I would probably like to see Spurs go somewhere different, but I can't see him leaving anyway. While we're on the subject of Manchester City and their players, let me just read this one out quickly. TalkSport have stated that Tottenham Hotspur are getting ready for a fresh swoop for Manchester City winger Savinho. Spurs were rebuffed by City when they tried to sign the Brazilian last summer, although the player was keen on a move to North London. The Europa League holders are hoping that the pending arrival of Bournemouth star Antoine Semenyo will change Manchester City's stance. Craig, I'm going to move on to talk about Thomas Frank in the embargoed press conference saying about Spurs need to be a better selling club. He said, I think selling well is key. I think it's not only the one thing, get them playing in a certain way and get the culture right at the football club, train in a certain way. There's a lot of elements that we need to do well to be able to compete at the highest level. Part of it, of course, is to be able to sell players. You see other top clubs, they are quite good at selling. So that's something we need to improve on. That's something I know the guys above me are working on very hard. So everything is linked. It's an interesting one, this, because you think when he comes out of a comment like that, who else are Spurs thinking of selling in this transfer window? I know we spoke about Radu Dragushin, and I know we'll talk about Manor Solomon in a second as well. But my point on this is not just about the selling. The buying needs to be better as well, because when you think about, so many managers, particularly since we've moved in at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in 2019, 6 permanent managers, I might add, 3 interim appointments, including Ryan Mason twice and Stellini. But the buying needs to be better. When we seem to sell a player, the player that we bring in to replace that player, and I think you could go on the whole list. Moussa Dembele, was he really replaced? Christian Eriksen, who replaced Harry Kane? I know you can't replace that type of quality, but you'd certainly be looking for a much, better player than what we brought in. Son went out the door. He hasn't been replaced yet. So as well as we need to be a selling club, and I do agree with Thomas Frank, we do need to offload players at the right times, but we also need to buy better as well. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, we do. We all know that we've struggled to get players out the door, absolutely. But I've said before, it's the Spurs as a club. It must be a very comfortable place to be. Lovely stadium, lovely training ground and everything. Everything's very comfy, isn't it? And players just don't want to go sometimes, We've seen that time and time again. So, but even going back before that, like you say, I know the training ground's been around a lot longer than the stadium has, but we've always struggled to get players out the door. And but then again, to be fair to Spurs, we always used to buy low and sell high, didn't we? The likes of Gareth Bale. And the fans criticised the fact that we were letting our best players go. So I guess you can't have it both ways, and striking that balance is difficult. And Pep's probably got it right at City, hasn't he? You know, the likes of Cole Walker, when you see Cole Walker go, that's probably about the right time for him to go. So it's a really difficult balance, but definitely we need to clear, clear out the dead wood, so to speak, don't we? The next one from me, just talking about Brennan Johnson, and I'm not going to talk about this too much because I think everybody knows the situation of Brennan Johnson, but there is a report today from Daily Mail. It was only released very recently, about 25 minutes ago, saying that Crystal Palace, Oliver Glasner, will look to convince Brennan Johnson of completing a £35 million move from Tottenham today. And it basically goes on to say that Johnson has still to be fully sold on the transfer, and Palace hope discussions with Glasner today can finally persuade the 24-year-old to join. And as Thomas Frank said, Brennan Johnson would be in the squad today. He's not. So that speaks volumes. That says a lot, doesn't it? I suppose just me recapping on my thoughts on Brennan Johnson. I personally would keep Johnson at the club. A bit gutted he's going. But if we do sell him, come back to it, we need a player that's going to replace his goals, because we've seen a lot of goals go out of this team through injury and players going like Son. So we need to replace Brennan Johnson with an upgrade, essentially, don't we? I mean, what do you reckon, Chris? Do you think, can you see Spurs doing that, I suppose?
Yeah. First of all, let me just read these few reports out. Fabrizio Romano on this, he has stated that Brennan Johnson Crystal Palace deal at final stages as Tottenham give permission to the player to discuss personal terms with Palace. Medical could follow next, as Brennan Johnson will not be in Tottenham's squad today to face Brentford. Palace are on it. Here we go soon. BBC Sport on this, they have stated that Brennan Johnson will meet Crystal Palace boss Oliver Glasner on Thursday before making a final decision on whether to complete a £35 million move from Tottenham. Now, my take on this, Craig, is if you are Brennan Johnson right now, and I get the club want to sell him, and I get the player will certainly want to, be a starter, a regular starter in the Premier League. With all of the doubts over Oliver Glasner being Crystal Palace boss next year, what would you be thinking if you were the player or the player's family? Because you know my thoughts on Oliver Glasner. I think he's a top manager, but will he be at Crystal Palace? With everything that he's been saying, he hasn't pledged his future beyond the summer to the club because he says that things are very, very busy. So, and there are plenty of suitors for Brennan Johnson. There are a lot of clubs interested: Bournemouth, Everton, Sunderland, and I've no doubt that one or two may even come in for him. But, if I was Crystal Palace, I'd be saying to Tottenham, look, we want this deal done as soon as possible, because Glasner, post-match press conference after the Spurs game, he was saying, look, it's pretty obvious where we are lacking, and it was in that final third, and they need players in quick. Yeah, if I was Johnson, I'd be thinking, who's going to be the manager next year? That would be my first question. And it's interesting because if you are a potential signing and you look a manager in the eye and you say, well, are you going to be here next year? What does Glasner say? How can you skirt around that very direct question when someone's looking you in the eye? So that will be the interesting thing for me.
That's just to jump in there, Chris. That's probably why in this special situation, a loan move could be a good option for Brennan Johnson. I don't know how. You're right. Oliver Glasner probably won't be at Palace next year. So at least if he's got that a loan option, whether it's you can't have an obligation to buy, that would kind of defeat the object. But an option to buy, and everybody's got to agree.
I can't see a loan, if I'm honest, because when you've got that amount of other clubs interested and willing to pay that money, and as I said the other day, what can you get in terms of Premier League experience, European experience, international for that kind of money now? So can we buy a replacement just as good for that amount of money, or are we going to have to go and spend a lot more money? But as I keep saying, Craig, and I probably say it every day on these episodes until the 2nd of Feb when the transfer window closes, that I want us to show ambition, and I just hope that we have an ace or two up our sleeve if we are letting people like Brennan Johnson go out the door. Next up, official short statement from Spurs, Jamie Donley, and we spoke about this yesterday. Jamie Donley has been recalled from his loan at Stoke. The 20-year-old versatile midfielder moved to the Championship outfit on the 6th of August and provided an assist on his debut in their opening day 3-1 win over Derby 3 days later. Jamie departs the Potters, having made 6 appearances in all competitions, 4 league and 2 Carabao Cup. Craig, we spoke about this yesterday, so we won't talk about it for very long. Various reports are stating that Bolton are in for him. Of course, they're in League One. They're 6th in the league at the moment. Like I said yesterday, a lot of Leyton Orient fans would love to see him go back there. For me personally, I think that he needs to step it up and go to a Championship club. You know, you and I, we're big fans of Jamie Donley. We know that he can do it in the Championship. He's doing it at international level for Northern Ireland. But I just want to see him take on that extra challenge. And I hope it's not a League One club. I hope it is a Championship one.
Yeah. Just agree with all that. You're right. Love Jamie Donley, but he definitely probably, well, no two ways about it. He's going to need another loan. I can't see him forcing his way into the team, sadly, but he's going to need the loan. Hopefully he can have a good second half of the season in the Championship. Yeah, definitely. Do you want to go through another one of yours, Chris, or do you want me to talk about?
Right. I'll go through a couple of quick ones here. Here we go, exclusive from Italian journalist and transfer expert Fabrizio Romano. Fiorentina reached verbal agreement to sign Manor Solomon. Here we go. The winger is set to leave Villarreal with loan move to be interrupted. A new transfer to Fiorentina from Tottenham. Deal agreed today, and apparently it is a loan option. A loan with an option to buy. And an interesting one here, Craig. Daily Express, they've stated 6 players that may never, ever play for Tottenham again, and then they give their reasons. Do check out this article if you want to find out more. They've said Brennan Johnson, Yves Bissouma, and a couple of surprises here. Dane Scarlett, Mikey Moore, Alfie Devine, and they've also included Manor Solomon, which we all expect. But they've stated that Alfie Devine hasn't pulled up any trees at Preston. They've said Dane Scarlett, you know, he hasn't taken his opportunities when he's had them. And Mikey Moore, they wouldn't be at all surprised to see Spurs sell him if the right offer come in, because, of course, it would be pure profit. Now, my thoughts on that. Mikey Moore, I think, is an absolute star, and he should be back at Tottenham next season and really pushing to get game time in the Premier League under whoever is the manager, Thomas Frank or somebody else. We know how things work.
We do.
That's not me speculating, by the way. It's just me being a Spurs fan. But yeah, those 6 names. Johnson, we expect to go out the door. Bissouma, we expect. Dane Scarlett. What do you make of those 6 on the list?
I think the ones that stick out for me, Dane Scarlett, when you say that he hasn't taken his opportunity, he hasn't really been given much opportunity, has he? And he has scored goals and made a difference when he came on. So, it
was the report that said that, not me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. That's why I think the report's a bit of a daft thing to say there, because he's hardly been given a look, has he? Now, you could say that he's not been performing well in training. We don't know, do we? But I mean, I think a lot of fans have been, including myself, been calling for Dane Scarlett to get half hour at the end of the game, you know, to see what he can do. So that one would be surprising, although not massively surprising if they decide to part ways. Mikey Moore is the one for me. Alfie Devine, I can kind of see the argument behind that one. Mikey Moore, come on. Mikey Moore, we've seen what he can do. That second half, and I can't remember, was it AZ Alkmaar, the second half, beginning first 20 minutes of the second half? I was at that game, and he was just unbelievable. He was tearing the defender apart down that left wing for 20 minutes. It was like having Gareth Bale back. So you can see he's got something in him. He's actually really kicked on, under the new manager at Rangers now, hasn't he? So I don't understand that at all if we let Mikey Moore go. He should be back in the summer challenging for the left wing position, in my opinion. Because I think Mikey Moore's got a higher ceiling than Odebear or Tell or anybody else currently in that position. So I think that would be ridiculous. Yeah,
the Rangers fans are certainly excited on what they're seeing at the minute. Just before you come in with your one, Football.London today, and this was mentioned by them a couple of weeks ago as well. Matisse Tell, Kota Takai, both of them could head out the door in the January transfer window on loans. Now, I think a lot of people forget how young a lot of our squad is. Matisse Tell is, of course, still only 20. He's played in 11 games in the Premier League so far this campaign, only starting 3. He scored twice. He's only played 277 Premier League minutes under Thomas Frank. His XG this season, 0.46. He's had 2 shots on target, successful dribbles, 50%. and touches 104, only 12 in the opposition box. As I've said before, Craig, I think that with Matisse Tell, there is certainly potential there. But like I said yesterday, I feel like Spurs need an injection of real quality, ready-made players. And this isn't, dissing Matisse Tell at all. I've seen a lot, actually, and I've been very positive about Matisse Tell. And he was actually one of the standout players for me in pre-season when I went to Hong Kong and South Korea. He was excellent in the training. Would you be surprised to see these two go out? Because, of course, Coach Dekai has had a bit of a tough spell since joining, being out injured. He returned to the matchday squad. I say returned. He was in the matchday squad for the first time against Crystal Palace on the 28th of December. Would you be surprised to see these two go out? Because they do need game time.
They do, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Coach Dekai goes out. Young player, new to the league. I think he's got to get used to English football. I don't think a loan to somewhere like Spain or anything like that would be any good for him at all. If he's going to go abroad, perhaps the Bundesliga. But I mean, I would like to see him get a loan. Maybe you could do it in the Premier League. I don't know. Perhaps an up and coming Championship team like an Ipswich or something. Perhaps that would be good for him. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Matisse Tell's a funny one. We covered. I think we covered this yesterday, or certainly on a recent podcast, that his loan was made permanent, wasn't it, before Frank came in? So he was kind of a club signing. So the club has obviously taken a look at him and felt that he did enough in the 6 months he was on loan with us, and then made that permanent. But he's just not. For some reason, Frank hasn't seen anything in him that he particularly likes, so he's kind of been third or fourth choice, hasn't he? Really, reluctant to give him minutes. So it wouldn't surprise me if the club sent him on loan. But again, he's another player that I think deserves minutes, because I thought in the Leeds game when he scored, I thought he was very good in that game. So, yeah, perhaps another player, but I don't know what you have to do sometimes to get a manager. Look, some players just don't fit managers' eyes, do they? We know that. So football's subjective, isn't it? And we don't see what happens in training, do we? So we don't know. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Matisse Tell. My last one today is just a report from Football.London about Ivan Toney again. Basically, they were saying that Ivan Toney sends a clear message to Tottenham and Thomas Frank as the transfer window opens, and they're basically saying that rumours are hinting at a move back to the Premier League for Ivan Toney. I suppose this is just to discuss what I think about whether we should go for somebody like Ivan Toney. I've said before, I think his wages are going to be a massive stumbling block. He's plus 30 years old now, isn't he, as well? I'm not sure Ivan Toney would be linked with Spurs as much as he is if it wasn't for the Thomas Frank factor that he worked with him at Brentford.
Yep.
And I suppose the question as well for us all to ask is, would Ivan Toney solve our problems? We know how good he is. He was in the England squad for the last, I think his last two big tournaments, wasn't it? Tony's been in the England squad, certainly the last one. Does bring something a little bit different. Obviously, Premier League proven. Is he going to solve our problems? Are we going to spend that much money on wages on a player like Ivan Toney? A lot of people really like him. I'm kind of ambivalent with him, if I'm honest with you.
He scores goals.
He scores goals.
He's a good finisher.
Yeah. Is he better than Richarlison?
Yes.
Yes, I suppose he is. I suppose the deal's got to be right. I'm talking myself into signing him now. Now you're saying that. But I suppose because I've personally never liked... I just think he comes with a bit of baggage. I'm not sure is he going to fit into the team. But then again, look, it's probably unfair me saying that because I don't really know the player. I don't know him personally. But you just go on what you read, don't you, like we all do. So... would he score goals? Yes. Would he fit into this team? I'm sure Frank would. What do you make of Ivan Toney, Chris?
I really like Toney. I would. I think that he would be a real success at Tottenham. If there's anyone who knows Thomas Frank's system inside and out, it's him. Great Premier League experience. He would score a hatful of goals for Tottenham or any Premier League team, I might add. It's funny because I saw a report earlier. Chris Chris Waddle, of course, former Spurs star, was commenting about Ivan Toney, and he said it would be good for the short term, but I'm not sure about the long term, because Tottenham like to make money or make profits on transfers, and could Spurs sell him in 3 years' time? So I think that this would be a short term thing if it was to happen. So I kind of think that it's answered my question of would this happen? I don't think it would, because Thomas Frank is thinking about the long term. And it's funny, Ange used to think about the long term, and they've said very similar things about being aligned at the football club and, going forward. And it's always about the future, But for us fans, a lot of the time, it's about the short term and saying, well, what we're going to do this season, what we're going to do, what's the plan next season? Because we do have a lot of players around the same age. And, Frank's even said about, 4 or 5 years' time, some of these players are going to be superb. But even in the embargo press conference, he said about Mbeumo took like 6 years, 5-6 years before he become the player that moved to Manchester United. And then Tom Barkley from the Sun said, well, what about Wilson Odobert? Can he be that player like Mbeumo in 5 or 6 years' time? Do fans want to wait 5 or 6 years' time to see these players develop? And sometimes it is about the now. Sometimes it is about getting you out of the trouble that you're in. And I think Ivan Toney would do that. The other thing I'd say quickly on him is if he wants any chance of going into the World Cup, or is it too late? He needs to be playing in somewhere like England rather than Saudi, because I don't think he's going to be in that squad at all. But that'd be an interesting one. Can I see it happening? No, I can't. Etta Iyong is a 22-year-old Cameroon international. Apparently, Spurs have been looking at him. He plays as a striker. He can also play as a midfielder. He's played 15 games, 15 starts, 6 goals, 3 assists this season for Levante in La Liga. He is currently at AFCON. He's got really good stats. I've looked at his stats, Craig. Looks really, really good in terms of numbers and data. We know that the club are heavily driven on data. He's had 33 shots, 5 attempts from set pieces, which is a dream for Thomas Frank. And what I like about this, attempts on goal, right foot 18, left foot 7. I love a striker who can actually hit the ball with both feet. And it seems crazy to say that now in 2026. You would expect every professional to be good with both feet, but it's not always the case. On target, 15. As I say, he scored 6, XG 6.43. He wins a lot of fouls in the final third, 27 this season. And his defensive stats are also very, very good. So, data, very good, but only 22 years old. Not a great deal of experience. Are you a fan of buying outside of the Premier League, or would you prefer Premier League experience? Because it's funny, isn't it? We went through that stage of buying, lots of players, and then Ange come out and said it's about Premier League experience, and then we went down that route of the club thought, look, this isn't working. We need Premier League experience. Where do you stand on that?
I think it can work. I do think it can work. I think you've got to have an element of luck to it, though. To be honest with you, you've seen how long it takes players to settle. I just think this window is all about almost as sure things as you can have. Mm-hmm. That's Thomas Frank hasn't got time for players to take time to settle. If we don't start getting the results, the manager is going to be out the door. We know how it works, right? Yeah. So it seems stupid to say that where we are in the Premier League, and if we do win later on today, we could shift a fair bit up the table. We'll certainly be within touching distance anyway, points-wise. But 2 or 3 games, we could be back down near the bottom, couldn't we? So it's, the likes of Aguero, when Aguero went to City a good few years ago now, but he hit the ground running, didn't he? Players like that, it does happen, and, it's possible. But again, another young player, brilliant stats you read out. Is he going to cut it in the Premier League? We just don't know. Nobody knows. That's the thing. Any transfer is a gamble. I remember Paratici said that, any transfer is a bit of a gamble. So it's just how the clubs see it, I guess. Are they going to, he's going to be a cheaper player, a younger player again? Do you need a bit of experience? I would probably err on I want a player through the door this window. you could have both, of course you can, but the first sign we've got to make, we've got to be impact players we know are going to been there, done it, and can do it now.
Lastly, just wanted to mention this one quickly. Sky Sports have mentioned that Manchester United are likely to face competition from Bayern Munich and PSG for 19-year-old Ivory Coast winger Yan Diomande, who has been valued. And it's funny because I saw a lot of reports in the last couple of days valuing him at £87 million. But Sky now stating that he's being valued at £52 to £61 million by German side RB Leipzig. Of course, Spurs are interested in Yan Diomande as well. Let's wait to see what happens. It is only the first day of the January transfer window. I know we want him in early, but do we expect signings on the 1st of January? Some might, I suppose. Craig, thank you so much for joining me yet again. I will see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for your input. And please do hit that subscribe button, everyone. Like, share and comment below. And get involved. Tell us what your expectations are of the January transfer window. We will be live every single day talking about all of the transfer rumours and updates. Happy New Year once again. And come on, you Spurs.